Good morning. I'm going to call this August 5th, 2025, regular commissioners meeting to order. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No, but I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second that.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public comment. Is there anybody here this morning wishing to make a public comment? Come to the podium, please, and identify yourself. And you have 3 minutes to speak, sir.
3 minutes. This won't take that long. I'd like to address especially District 2 Commissioner Wongbacher. My name is David Dupre. I am a resident of Orland and a retired high school science teacher. I'm aware of conservation issues, especially involving impacts of rapid global climate change. I serve as a member of a number of Orland committees and work with funding agencies such as the Maine Community Foundation and the Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, in the Future. During today's board meeting, I would like you to consider regular annual funding of the county's Soil and Water Conservation District. I am an elected board member. This was the case not too many years ago. I think the amounts that ranged from about $12,000 to $15,000 annually. I'm aware of the recent 2025 grant of $12,000 from the commissioners through Soil and Water's successful proposal via the Hancock County Community Benefits Program. This worthy volunteer administered and operated agency provides soil and water quality testing, backyard native rewilding, and enhanced migratory fish passage services for the little guys. Unlike the Maine University Cooperative Extension grantees, we do struggle each year to fund our operations. Couldn't it help by adding the Hancock Soil and Water Conservation District to the list of agencies in Department 17? Your successful consideration would make our district budget a bit more stable and consistent as we face the fiscal and environmental uncertainties of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak this morning as a public comment
Um,
on any of the line?
this is Joyce Schelling. I guess I'm not invisible, sorry. I just think that the sheriff's budget's coming up and I know in the past he's not been allowed to have a canine. And I just wondered if that was going to be discussed. And if it is, I'll stay, I guess, or. Thank you.
Anybody else who wishes to speak? Hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes, July 22nd, 2025, Commissioner Special Meeting as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unorganized territories is Miller Don this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning. We have your report. Anything to add to that, Miller?
Nothing to add, no. The culverts are in on Back Road. Brian did an excellent job. They look good.
Any date for paving? Have you heard anything?
Yes, I talked to Peter Nason. They are gonna get the gravel from the pit at the intersection of Spec Pond Road and Route 9. And they're gonna be moving their screen, Eaton's gonna be moving their screen up there this week. And we'll start screening the gravel and stockpiling it there. And when they get the correct volume stockpiled, then they will start moving it over to the site. um, they want to watch because they don't want to pave. They don't want to be in the paving process over Labor Day weekend. They either want to get it paved so it can harden up before Labor Day weekend, because they expect a lot of traffic on that road going into the pond for Labor Day weekend. So they either want to get it paved the week before Labor Day weekend so it'll harden up before the weekend, or they want to wait until after the weekend and the traffic subsides before they pave it.
What are they gonna do? Put a new, additional surface on there before they pave?
Yeah, they're gonna build it, they're gonna build the road up with gravel before they pave, out of the contract, yeah.
How about Mountains Ridge? Has he said anything about that?
Yeah, they're doing that, they're gonna do Back Road first and then Mountains Ridge.
So that could be well into September before we get that done.
Yes, the issue with Mountains Ridge is they wanna wait until they get the blueberry harvest over with.
I see. It makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, with anything else?
That's all I've got.
All right, I'm gonna move to accept and file the UT monthly report as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Thank you,
Noah.
Commissioners.
Airport, is Leroy on this morning?
Yeah, here I am.
Good morning. We have your monthly report. Anything to add?
No, they're starting to work on moving some equipment in for the snow removal equipment building, so that's going to really happen. So they're talking next week, putting down some erosion control, temporary fencing, and then once that's in, they can start the excavations. So it's looking good.
All right, I move to accept and file the airport monthly report as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Leroy,
Nope.
what's happening with the the getting the right of way, the different land.
Oh, the approach, right away agreements there.
That battle is really slow. It may come down to, we may have to take some action on the negotiating person, the person that's doing the negotiating, because the new consultant that we're going to take up on the next agenda item is made a comment the other day when I was talking to him that the environmental assessment is only good for, I think he said 7 years. So where that was signed off in 2002, so we need to get we need to keep this thing moving. And talking to Acadia Aqua Farm, they hadn't even got their offer yet from the person doing the negotiating for, that Jacobs hired. So Heath at Jacobs was on leave last week doing some working with some kids. So I'll reach out to him again this week and find out where we're at. This thing has got to get moving at a better pace somehow. I'm not really sure how we need to do it, but it's.
But we need to renegotiate with a new.
Well, Jacobs is under contract for the easement portion of this. So we're kind, other than we, breached their contract, I guess. But they've hired an independent to do the negotiating on our part. We kind of had to step in, both Heath and I, to one of the landowners, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and because we had heard, through the proverbial grapevine that he wasn't happy with the way the negotiations were going. And it appears that this person doing the negotiation may or may not be explaining very well what we're looking for. These people have like a 5-unit motel and maybe another 5 or 6 cabins. And they were saying, well, if we basically sell you this easement, we may not be able to put in the 6 more cabins we want. And I finally had to go back and go, what we're asking for won't cause a problem for cabins, because and quite frankly, if you go back to the Trenton's land use ordinance, Trenton's land use ordinance says nothing over 35 feet. And we're looking at our, arbitrary number is around 70 feet and above. So even the Trenton land use ordinance won't get him up into any space that will bother us, So once that was cleared up, he felt a little bit better. We started things started moving a little bit more with that particular landowner. So we did send emails out to all the landowners and told them if they was having any issues to reach out to either Heath or I, and we would clarify. So that was about a week and a half ago. So things are, we're trying to mitigate what may have happened in the past and trying to get real information back out there. So it's moving slowly, I guess, to answer your question.
If we move to the report. Did we move on that report? So you want to take action on D?
I'm gonna move to approve the airport general consultant agreement dated August 5th, 2025 with Du Bois and King of Randolph, Vermont, and authorize the chair to sign on behalf of Hancock County.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank
Anything
you.
else, Leroy?
No, and the Du Bois and King folks have already been, they've already got a bunch of information. They're already working on a couple of projects for me, so they've really been proactive on this, so. I think-
Who's their primary contact person?
It's gonna be Guy Royale. He lives right in Maine. The upside with this organization is 3 out of the 6 or 7 in the team are based out of Bangor. So, they're right here. And I think he has a house up maybe in Charleston or lives up in Charleston or something. So we have them right here where we can really get at them. So I'm really happy with this.
Great. Hope it works out. Okay,
Thank you.
moving on, emergency management. Is Andy on this morning?
He is.
Andy, are you on this morning? Okay, we have Andy's report.
Yep, I'm gonna move to accept and file the EMA monthly reports presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So let's move on, and if Andy comes back with an issue, we'll recognize him. Sheriff,
Morning.
let's see, I understand this discussion on staffing is relative to the 2 additional patrol deputies that are in the budget.
That is correct.
Well, I had been opposed to that, we approved the budget, opposed it, we approved the budget, still opposed today. You interested in hiring under that, 2 additional deputies under that budget?
If I may, Commissioners, I'd like,
Just a second. This could be a short discussion.
well, I'd like to be able to have that discussion, to be able to tell you our stance, that's all.
Oh, us, yeah. I was like, no, it's not muted.
Thank you, gentlemen. First, obviously, discuss the positions. As you're aware, this is the first item we're discussing here. It's been an ongoing topic, discussed at length over the last couple of years, which has brought us to where we are today. The Sheriff's Office firmly believes that these positions are critical. They will enhance operational efficiency, improve our response time to calls, and potentially reduce some overtime expenses. But more importantly, I want to address the question that I know is on your minds, which is why are these positions necessary? In short, our responsibilities have changed, but our staffing has not. Let me elaborate a little bit. Back in 2022, we operated under a call sharing agreement with the Maine State Police. They were covering approximately half of the county's calls for service. However, in 2023, due to their staffing shortages, the state police informed us they could no longer continue with that arrangement. And ultimately, they reduced their coverage to just 1/3 of the county. That shift left the Sheriff's Office responsible for 2/3 of the county, both in geographic area and population. Unsurprisingly, we saw a significant increase in demand, specifically our calls for service rose approximately 1,300 that year alone. In response, the Sheriff's Office requested 2 additional positions for fiscal year 2024's budget. While the Budget Advisory Committee approved those positions were ultimately removed by the Commissioners during the final budget deliberations that year. Recognizing that the need hadn't gone away, we again submitted a request for those 2 positions during the fiscal year 2025 budget process that took place last year. Once again, the Budget Advisory Committee approved them, this time by a supermajority. As a result, those positions are now funded in the current budget that we possess. And we are simply requesting to utilize those funds that have already been allocated. We believe these positions bring our staffing to a sustainable and appropriate level. If approved, we do not intend to come back during this budget cycle to ask for additional positions. However, if they are not permitted to be filled, we do plan to submit that request once again in this budget cycle because the need still exists. Now, I'd like to ask you to take a moment to reflect for a second. Think back 10 years ago. Let's go back to 2014, for example. What's changed in your lives? What's changed in our county? What's changed in our state? And what's changed in the nation? I think we can all agree that a lot has changed. And just as the world hasn't stood still, neither has law enforcement. Our responsibilities have grown. Our geographic coverage has expanded. Our calls for service have increased, but our staffing has not kept pace. When we took on responsibility for 2/3 of the county, it meant more miles on the road, longer response times, and greater volume of calls, many of which now result in more complex investigations, arrests, and reports. Some of these calls are resolved in a single shift. Others require days or even weeks of follow-up. To give you some perspective, if you compare our calls for service in 2014 to those in 2024, you'll see a dramatic increase in what we would consider our most significant calls, those that require more time, more resources, and often multiple deputies to handle properly. I'd like to bring your attention to that for just a moment. Here are some, and I can provide you with these as well, that you can follow along if you'd like, but it's just something that I will read briefly. It's a simple comparison of the annual calls data, most of which has already been provided with the exception of 2014 as well. So what I'd like to bring your attention to is these most significant calls that we would say require more time, more resources, and oftentimes more deputies to handle. For example, death investigations. If you go 2014, 25, 2024, 51, it over doubled. Overdose investigations, 2014, 4, 2024, 9, again, over double. Now, the overdose investigations may not seem significant at 9, but I can tell you is one of those investigations, a single investigation in 2024 is in excess of 37 pages. It's taken several months of investigation. So they take significant amount of time and resources. Well-being checks. If you call and you're concerned about a family member or a friend, and whether that be their mental state, whether that be something you have heard from them, you're concerned for their well-being. In 2014, we requested a check on people 86 times. In 2024, 253, over 3 times as many. Domestic violence investigations, 2014, 49, 2024, 104, over twice as many. Fraud investigations, 57 in 2014, 2024, 78. Mental illness, 2014, 28 calls for service, 2024, 129, over 4 times as many. Crash investigations, 2014, 550, 2024, 744. Trespassing complaints, 2014, 62, 2024, 108. Criminal mischief investigations, 2014, 28, 2024, 46. Violation of protection orders, 2014, 18, and 2024, 29. The reason I bring these to your attention is because in those last 10 years, our staffing has not doubled. Although our calls and what would require our time has in almost every single category. And we're not asking to double our staff. We're asking to bring it to what we feel is an adequate position. And that's why we're asking to fill these positions. The Budget Advisory Committee has supported this request twice. This request
Are we having technical difficulty?
Yeah. Something. I apologize, but there was nothing I could do. The recording went off and now it's back.
So once again, gentlemen, we do not anticipate. We are looking to utilize the budgeted funds that, again, the budget committee has approved the last 2 years and is now in our current budget. With that being said, that is what we additional deputies. Conversely, if they're not permitted, then we would, because this is what we feel is needed, this is what we feel is adequate. We just want to be able to utilize what we have existing budget.
Sam?
How many deputies did you have?
And so forth. I can tell you in 2015, we had 13 that handled calls for service. And the reason why I word it that way is because at that time we had additional deputies. At so that includes the currently we have 16 were in.
Wait, excuse me, does that include detectives and lieutenants?
Yes.
16?
Yes. That does not include like Swan's Island, and that does not include the.
How many deputies do you have now?
16 that would handle calls for service.
I would.
You got technical difficulty,
I don't know anything about that.
can you tell when it goes off?
I can tell when it goes off. It just went off and then right away it said recording in progress.
Well, I guess we'll have to continue whether we're recording or not.
They're working on it apparently at the Ellsworth America, hopefully, on the website. Participants are all still there.
I think first of all, when we examine the venues, is that no calls to the sheriff's department are going unanswered. That question was asked of the sheriff at the budget advisory committee, and he said no, and all calls were being answered. So it's not like we have a critical shortage of deputies to handle these calls. And this issue, the state police backing out, when you stop and think about it, the state police before were handling 50% of the county's, hypothetically 50% of the calls. They dropped down to 1 of 3 slots. So they went from 50% to 33%. Gentlemen, it's only a 17% drop in the number of calls. I mean, we're not talking about catastrophic loss of helping. We only lost 17%. And when you look at the calls that are being tabulated in 2024, and compare those to 2014, you're going to see that a lot of those calls in there are calls that are being tabulated today under a complaint number that were being performed back in 2014. They just weren't assigned a number. And also, I don't know if it's still in effect. As of last year and whatnot, during budget season and whatnot, the sheriff's department felt it necessary to impose a 30 complaint minimum per deputy each month. So in other words, they had to come up with 30 complaint numbers. And my question then still is today, if you're so overworked that you can't get your work done, why don't you even consider imposing minimum number of complaints? And so I think they have failed to prove that this is absolutely necessary. And I will tell you that the 2 deputies with everything they need, cruisers, cameras. We talked about body cameras today. That is well over $400,000 just to get them started in the first 12-month period. So I'm saying at a time when our budget is, well into the, 20% of the increases that whatnot, we've got to look at the budget, not only this year, the budget coming up, and try to figure out where we're going to save. And I think the sheriff's department, given the staffing they had today and whatnot, the best we can say is do what you can do, which apparently they're able to do all they need to do because nobody's going without calls being answered. And we're going to have to toe the line here. So I think we should oppose hiring any additional deputies under the 2 new deputies that were put in this year's budget.
What I'd like to say, commissioners, in response to that is, as Commissioner Clark outlined, our calls for service, our responsibility increased 17%. Only a reasonable person would say, okay, well, what does that equate to your staffing? To take on 17% more, that you're talking, that was over 1,300 calls for service. It would adequately reflect to increase your staffing accordingly to provide the same level of service. What I would also mention is that in the statistics that I provided you and I just mentioned, it's clear that our responsibilities have increased significantly. The times of law enforcement have increased significantly. What the public expects of us has increased significantly. The other thing that I would also say to counter Commissioner Clark's stance on budgeting is that in preparation of this, in anticipation of these positions, because it is something that we have wanted to be able to do and have requested for the last 2 years, we have prepared for this. So those funds for the wages are already existing in the budget. When it talks about outfitting those deputies, we have cruisers that I have held back in order to provide those to those deputies, because I understand it is a much larger ask to come to you and say, hey, in addition to these positions, I also need 2 new cruisers. Now, don't get me wrong, eventually, at some point down the line, we'll have to cycle through cruisers the way that we always have. But there is not that upfront cost due to that. Furthermore, obviously, as I've said in length, our position is that the staffing and the increase in calls for service and our demand reflects the and we would respectfully say thank you, and we would gladly take that or accept that. Ultimately, we feel that 2 is adequate, and we've explained why. But we would appreciate the 1 position even. Our stance is ultimately that we may it be the best investigation. It may not, because that time and resources are going to happen. And as Commissioner Clark stated, we took on 17 additional percent. That's what these are designed to counter. We're just looking to be able to utilize those funds that we currently possess.
Gentlemen, that's all rhetoric. The truth of the matter is, when you look at the bare facts and whatnot, from the figures they gave us, we haven't done these current ones, but from the figures they gave us, every 12 hours, and they have 12-hour shift day and night. There are 9 calls in that 12-hour period. Now, in the day shift, you've got 3 deputies, 2 detectives, and a lieutenant working. So you've got 6 people to answer on the average 9 calls. And at nighttime and whatnot, you've got 3 deputies and a lieutenant working. Oh, no, there's no lieutenant in it. You've got 3 deputies. So that's in a 12-hour period. You've got 9 calls. That's 3 calls per deputy in 12 hours. Now, I know that's average, but for every day that deputy might have to handle 6, hypothetically, there's another day when that deputy doesn't have any. And we can't staff for the worst days that these guys may have. You'd have to staff for what we think is an average amount of calls, and so they should come up with a management plan to address the days when it's more serious.
The last thing I'll say.
I'm not done, please don't interrupt, I'm not done.
Oh,
And so what I'm saying is that we should acknowledge the fact that all the calls are getting answered, that we don't think that 3 calls per deputy in a 12-hour period requires additional help. And we should toe the line on the number we have. I think what happens is that every time they come up here and want 2, they know they stand a good chance of getting 1. And that's just the strategy they had during the budget season. And it worked back then because that's what the commissioners were going to do with the final, and it failed, and because they couldn't get unanimous on that. And that would have been 1. But here they are again. Yeah, sure. 2's in the budget. I'll take 1 if you'll give me 1. And I'm saying, never mind that strategy. Decide whether or not they need them. And if they do, give it to them. If they don't, let's toe the line.
And my last thing that I'll say in that respect, commissioners, is you could always average out number of calls for service. What I'll give for an example is there's an overdose investigation. There's been multiple this past year as there's up. You can't just simply say 5 minutes. Some of them span weeks, some of them span months, some of them hours, some take shifts. You know, for example, you said take into consideration Blue Hill, right? They gotta drive to Blue Hill. I'm gonna talk to that individual. That might take me 30 minutes. I'm gonna talk to that family member. So there is much more time involved because that doesn't even include then typing the report for it as well. So many other things involved other than a call for service. 5. Is what that 17% in able to justify that, I would not bring it to you. We have brought it to the budget advisory committee the last 2 years. In the last 2 years. Commissioner Clark again states subject we feel is the most fair standard is look at the cost for service. Has it justified? Lastly, to Commissioner Clark for 2 and I'm not a fool. If somebody offered me 1, I'll certainly take it. But the reality is we come to you for 2 because we think that we need 1. It was because we actually need 2. But we will take any assistance that we can get.
And I would draw your attention to the fact that these serious cases that he's talking about, that's why we have detectives, that's why we have NDA when we're talking about drug investigations and whatnot. And with good management and whatnot, these extensive cases and whatnot, we go to somebody who has the time and the expertise to deal with those, and so that the deputy
Could we look forward to the budget?
Candidates that have applied, there are actual people that I would offer these positions to, these positions to. To that point, if if you provided us or allowed us to hire one, I would look at it and strongly, yes, I would strongly try to accommodate that. I would not feel comfortable making that guarantee right here on the spot.
But if you could hire two with approval, yes, how come you're not filling the vacancy that you've had since the January first?
I intend on submitting a name for that next meeting.
Why haven't you filled that, whether we get you one or not?
I will tell you why, because of the current arbitration with the K-9 position, that we have individuals that wanted that can't hire a position because the contract, the CBA for the union states that airport position would go to seniority. So there's an individual that was interested in the airport. That individual was also interested in the K-9 position. So to hire for, that's why I haven't hired for that yet. That are interested in multiple candidates that we feel are. But that is why I have the current arbitration with the K-9 position, because how am I supposed to know what position to hire for?
Prepared his CBA restricts the appointment. Nevertheless, they have three positions, January first, they needed to fill. They filled two of them. Third one's been vacant now for 4. I mean, they're talking about filling another position for this year or not. They haven't even filled the 3 vacant ones that they've had since the first of the year. So
As I stated, I have the people that to fill. So just asking.
well, we don't have the same.
Not a good sign.
Please not.
Stand giving you
Decided due to the time frame has that has gone past position as of last week, and that's why I do intend on submitting a name for hire in the coming meetings, and that is why I'm here today, so that I know the landscape of the. I have the names and the people who put in the. No surprise to any.
this before us. You could have to put up with it.
Yeah. Sound and the record and the video, but
Is that because
with the website folks, I'm not sure.
So to me, we've got the positions. Obviously, I said that it's a position to start this. Obviously, are not.
Taxation process, and over quality. Not get filled.
So,
And I can tell you right now,
they've already been taxed, you're right, so. I don't want to bring it. It could have just been one position. Knowing that it would.
but you still have to
Yourself.
said I take none if I can't get just one. So I mean, just have
We're not fooled.
if you can't see the handwriting on the wall too, they're gonna come back with another one next year.
Seems like you're the explanation of why you can't, but it seems like you should be able. You need a deputy to hire.
So I guess
The two new ones,
No, I'm talking about the vacancy that's there.
third vacancy, I'm not talking about one of the two.
So my commission development, I guess my question to that would be is because as I said, at that point in time, would you allow us to fill one of those two additional or not? The reason why I ask is because it's going to depend on whether or not we, who we would potentially. So I guess that's why. To know how we need to proceed and if it's, I fully understand you're saying hire that last one. Forward beyond just that.
I can't imagine what the scenario must be that he's talking about, because hire one, if you get permission, hire another one. I don't understand why one,
For that permission to know what direction do we go? Do we hire person A? Do we hire person B? Do we hire person C? Because we're also gonna have to sponsor them for training and so forth. Like, we're looking to know where we stand so that we know how to proceed with that hiring process and who we hire and so forth.
if they had permission to hire the third, which they do, then they have a plan for that. If they have permission to hire the third plus one, so if they have a plan for that, well, put the plan in place now for one. Then if you get, I don't understand that. I think this is, I think we're being, I won't say misled, but I think we're being potentially confused here.
There's. She needs to make a request to speak if she wants. Joyce Schelling.
Oh, I didn't, it's been cutting out so much, it's hard to know what's being said, so I didn't know if I would even be able to hear much more. Would this be a time for me to speak then?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm actually pretty confused by some of this discussion. I live in Orland. I don't have municipal police here. Commissioner Clark, I appreciate you trying to save us money, but I'm noticing that you do live in Ellsworth, which does have municipal police. And we depend on the sheriff's office. And I know of calls that don't get necessarily responded to because it's not as serious as the one that's coming in. I also know that crime has increased tremendously from what there's been before. I mean, years ago, I didn't hear of all these drug raids or domestic violence or fraud. I'm confused by the rationale to deny filling these positions when the budget advisors have approved it and we know that they look at the budget. Now, I appreciate you trying to keep our taxes down, and I understand the Hancock County budget keeps going up. But you know, in terms of just one officer, three calls in an hour, whatever it is, in 12 hours, sometimes a call might need more than one officer. So, we have a really peaceful county here, and that brings in lots of money and lots of tourists and lots of business people. And, we're very lucky. And it sounds to me like crime's increased and we have less staff at the sheriff's office. So it makes no sense to me to not at least
Also,
replace one or two of them. Thank you.
Take no action on this, and move on. What do you want?
And because it's cut out, I have no idea if you heard anything I said, but I guess I am urging the commissioners to agree to fund two positions if possible, and at the very least one.
Touch with and I'm sorry, but I think if we put this on off for an hour, maybe our technology would be better then. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We can't proceed. So, gentlemen, I'll accommodate.
I can try to end the meeting.
Chuck's on there. I don't know if he could come up and see if he.
We're continuing to conduct a meeting for this next agenda. Can you
Time.
I don't know what to tell you. To do it at 10 and we still, be available, we'll call it. I understand you've been here almost. Website that has the link.
So the signal on the Hancock County's host site is turning yellow and red. I feel like it's probably the network.
Building, probably.
I don't see how we. Salesman. If somebody wants. We need to. Yearly. And some of this work that they need to do that Dennis and I met. And close that deal.
Right,
And
right.
ordinance agreed to its last meeting. And as part of his requirement to pay, to provide is whether or not I had the authority to approve that on site. And I did ask simply acknowledging the fact that
I mean, there's two issues. That original. What the money was set aside for, which then becomes. But the actual mod. Now, where's. We originally. And somebody else doing the work. And obviously. Well, for me to say to you 100%, you can proceed forward how you want to do it based on just a verbal conversation. I mean, I haven't even seen what you're talking about in terms of. Shouldn't make an issue. We should be arguing that we're still using.
Enough. Just a few more minutes.
Let's do it there.
I did talk with Chuck. Unfortunately, well.
At least resolve the issue. With this one. Get a price.
Word that I'm receiving from Chuck is that it may not be the equipment. He doesn't, he would have to turn off the Zoom meeting and he doesn't know.
I mean, think of the worst case scenario, Joe. Only because the paving even specified where that paving was gonna take place, which is in replacing the